Copies.
We are a little under 90 seconds from that next burn that's going to position us at that 250-meter hold point. At that point, NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic is going to bring the space station's robotic arm to the spacecraft and actually capture it. At the end of the robotic arm is the lead, also known as the latching end effector, essentially the hand of the arm. Inside of that, there are those latches and snares that are going to grab onto the target on Cygnus. We do have a camera on the end of the lead, so we are expected to get views of when Dominic actually makes that final grasping of the spacecraft. Cygnus is officially under 300 meters away from the space station. While we are waiting for it to rendezvous to that 250-meter hold point, we do have some recap footage of Cygnus's launch that we can take a look at. If you are just joining us, Northrop Grumman's Cygnus spacecraft is continuing on its way to the International Space Station. Following a launch, you see recap footage here. It launched at 11:02 a.m. Eastern Time, August 4th, on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from the SpaceX Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. The spacecraft completed the deployment of its 2 solar arrays at 2:21 p.m. the same day. Shortly after launch on Sunday, the spacecraft performed as designed by canceling a scheduled engine burn due to a slightly low initial pressure reading that was flagged by the Cygnus onboard detection system. However, engineers at Northrop Grumman's Mission Control Center in Dulles, Virginia, evaluated the pressure reading, confirmed it was acceptable, and reworked the burn plan so that we are arriving at the space station at our original expected time, that 3:10 a.m. Eastern Time, 2:10 a.m. Central Time. Cygnus was developed by Northrop Grumman and is a part of NASA's Commercial Resupply Services program for the International Space Station. It's an unpiloted, fully autonomous spacecraft, can be monitored and controlled by astronauts on board the International Space Station, and also, of course, Northrop Grumman's mission control team in Dulles, Virginia. There are three main elements of the spacecraft. We have a service module, which handles its power, propulsion, and navigation, the pressurized cargo module, where those 8,400 pounds of important cargo is located, and then also a berthing mechanism that is going to allow it to be installed to the space station. Cygnus is expected to remain docked to the station for about 6 months. At the end of its mission, it is going to dispose of trash and other obsolete equipment by deorbiting and safely burning up over the Pacific Ocean. So this is Northrop Grumman's 21st cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. This Cygnus also has a special name. It is a tradition to name Cygnus after a pioneer in space exploration who is deceased. This cargo spacecraft is named the SS Dick Scobee. It is named in memory of NASA astronaut Richard Dick Scobee. He was a United States Air Force pilot and Vietnam veteran. He was selected as an astronaut in 1978 and chosen as a pilot of the STS-41C mission, where he logged 168 hours in space. In 1986, he served as commander of the Challenger spacecraft for the STS-51L mission, where he and his 6 crewmates lost their lives shortly after launch. Scobee was posthumously awarded the Congressional Space Medal of Honor in 2004 by former President George Bush. We're coming up at just about a minute until Cygnus reaches that 250-meter hold point. Again, those teams are going to poll go, no-go for it to proceed to its next milestone. It's going to bring it inside that keep-out sphere. And next, we are going to be holding at the 30-meter point away from the station. The crew and the flight control team. Here you can see a closer view there. So the one in the middle is our Capcom, and then our flight director is the bottom right. And our Capcom today is David Brenna. He's the voice that you are hearing talking up to the crew on board the International Space Station.
Station Houston on space to ground 2. Cygnus is ready to proceed to the capture point. Expect approach to resume shortly.
Station copies.
And we are go to proceed to that capture point. It's going to be about 10 meters from the space station. Again, though, we are going to wait until we are in an orbital daytime for NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic to start moving that robotic arm towards Cygnus. At the end of the arm is the LEE, L-E-E, latching end effector. It can be thought of as the hand of the arm, and inside are those latches and snares that are going to grab onto a target on Cygnus. That's going to be a target that Dominic has practiced with simulators both here at Johnson Space Center in Houston and also on board the International Space Station. Dominic is a Colorado native. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from the University of San Diego and a Master of Science degree in Systems Engineering from the Naval Postgraduate School.
Station Houston on Space to Ground 2. Cygnus has resumed approach to the capture point. Monitor approach within 30 meters per step 7 in 1.102.
Station copies. We see the prime range decreasing, and for block Bravo, the light is, for both monitors, the light is within the corridor, the vehicle size matches, the light is in the circle, and the circle is centered in the corridor.
Houston copies, good block Bravo.
That was the voice of NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps. She is serving as the backup for Dominic today. While he focuses on the controllers, we will probably hear her voice quite often, taking over the task of talking with the mission control teams here in Houston. You can see her screen that she is looking at right now live on board the International Space Station. Epps was selected by NASA in 2009 as an astronaut. She's a New York native and was a NASA fellow during graduate school. She's authored several journal and conference articles describing her research. She also worked for Ford Motor Company, where she received both a provisional patent and a U.S. patent for her research. From there, she joined the Central Intelligence Agency for 7 years, working as a technical intelligence officer before becoming an astronaut. She has a Bachelor of Science in Physics, a Master of Science, and a Doctorate of Philosophy in Aerospace Engineering. That one came from the University of Maryland. Her graduate research involved extensive testing of composite swept-tip beams, comparative analysis of analytical models, and experimental data for shape memory alloys, and the application of shape memory alloy actuators for tracking helicopter rotor blades. Both NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic and Jeanette Epps are a part of Crew 8. They launched on March 4th of this year to the International Space Station.
Houston Station on Space Ground 2. We're in step 4.2, and we're waiting to capture for lighting conditions.
Houston copies.
The crew is standing by for better lighting conditions. We did just recently exit that orbital nighttime and are into that orbital daytime right now. This is a live view of Cygnus and the robotic arm on the left. The robotic arm has not started to move yet. Again, the crew is waiting for better lighting conditions. At the end of the robotic arm is the lead. That's the latching end effector, the hand of the arm. There are latches and snares that are going to grab onto the target. NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic is going to maneuver that arm so that it can grab onto the
Station on 2. We're ready with the lighting, and we can complete step 4.2 on your go.
Houston copies. Go for it.
Over.
NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps on board the space station confirmed that they are good to proceed with capture. However, the robotic arm is not currently moving yet. You are seeing live views of that capture on your screen right now. And we have confirmed movement. The crew is pushing in the robotic arm to Cygnus. We do have a camera at the end of that lead, or the latching end effector. You're seeing live views now as NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic pushes in the robotic arm to Cygnus. The circle towards the bottom is actually the grapple target. Dominic is going to be aiming for that horizontal bar just above it. The fixtures on the robotic arm are going to engage with that circular pinwheel shape that is directly below the horizontal bar. Two meters away. One meter. 2:11 a.m. Central Time, 3:11 a.m. Eastern Time, while the space station flew over the South Atlantic Ocean, Northrop Grumman's 21st commercial resupply service mission was successfully captured at the hands of NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic. The Cygnus cargo spacecraft, as you see on your screen, is now securely attached to the space station's robotic arm. Next up is going to be the installation of the Cygnus spacecraft. That is actually going to be done by the ground team here in Mission Control Houston. For now, NASA astronauts Matthew Dominic and Jeanette Epps are relieved from their duties, will go on to their tasks for the day. We are going to take a brief break on our coverage, and we will be back for that installation.
Houston Station on 2, Cygnus capture is complete.
Go for Cygnus post-capture reconfiguration. You know, the space station brings a lot of visiting vehicles aboard, and we make it seem regular, but there's nothing regular about making one space station connect to another. It's incredible every single time. Welcome aboard the space station, Dick Scobee.
Houston copies all and concurs. This has been an incredible effort from both our Northrop Grumman and NASA teams, and all the way from mission planning and preparation leading up to launch, and especially over the past 48 hours of mission execution. Outstanding work today to y'all, and congrats on successfully capturing the 21st Cygnus and 50th visiting vehicle to the International Space Station. Why don't y'all go celebrate with some ice cream?
Did you say 50th? It's incredible. What an incredible group of teams from around the planet make this happen every single time. Thank you, guys.
You heard wonderful congratulatory remarks. Northrop Grumman's Cygnus spacecraft, supporting the Northrop Grumman's 21st commercial resupply service mission to the International Space Station, has been successfully grappled at the hands of NASA astronaut Matthew Dominic, with NASA astronaut Jeanette Epps serving as his backup. 2:11 a.m. Central Time, 3:11 a.m. Eastern Time is our official time of capture. We are going to take a brief break. We will be back on air for our installation coverage at 3:30 a.m. Central Time, 4:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you for joining us today. This is Mission Control Houston.
We are ready for the event.
KTRK, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Brianna Connor with KTRK. How can you hear me?
We hear you loud and clear. How us?
We hear you guys as well. You ready?
We are ready.
Here we go. We like to think eyewitness news is out of this world, and today we are proving it by having two astronauts currently on board the International Space Station join us to talk about how things are going and what their daily lives are all about. We've got Tracy Dyson and Mike Barrett. First off, I'll ask you, Mike, tell us about the path that led you to STEM and eventually NASA.
Well, it's a good question. I think I followed a similar path to a lot of us in the astronaut office, and that, we're all kind of fueled by curiosity and have diverse interests and really think about the future of whatever field that we really love. For me, I went through my career anxiety starting in high school, and I wanted to be an oceanographer and then an astronomer, and eventually went into medicine and really loved Earth observation. I loved flying, and guess where you can put all of that together into one place, one integrated wonderful party, and that's at NASA. So I think NASA is built for guys like us, guys and gals like us who are curious and just interested in a lot of things and want to see that all do something positive for the future.
Yeah, Tracy, tell us a little bit about your path.
Well, I was in high school when I took my first chemistry class, and I was hooked. I loved chemistry because it answered the questions that I had at that point my whole life. And simple things like, why is the sky blue? Why does water boil? What's the difference between a tree and a bush? Those kind of things. And so I then decided to pursue chemistry in college. And then it was through my work in chemistry there that my advisors encouraged me to go to graduate school and to study chemistry even further. Along the lines of like Mike was saying, career anxiety. When I was a junior in high school, I was trying to think about what I wanted to do, and at the same time, the world was, or our nation really was buzzing over something NASA was doing, and that was putting a teacher in space. And for the first time, I really hadn't thought much about what these astronauts were all about. Just from the right stuff. I thought they were all test pilots in the military. But when I found out that they were sending a teacher into space, it got my attention, because in high school, your teachers, you have not just one, but 6 of them probably throughout the day. My teachers were my coaches, my counselors, they were my mentors. They meant a lot to me. And so to see a teacher going into space as an astronaut was really motivating. And like Mike said, being the curious beings that we are, I looked more into NASA to see what they were doing, and at the time they were flying shuttle pretty rigorously, but they were also designing the space station, and at the time it was called Space Station Freedom, but it was not long after that they were transitioning to the International Space Station where we are now. And to make a long story short, once I found out about astronauts and what they were doing on the International Space Station, I made a list of things that I enjoyed doing, and it seemed to match everything that was going on at NASA. So that was kind of the path I took, both with chemistry as well as with NASA.
Yeah, I know what it's like to have a curious mind, but journalism was a little bit better of a fit for me. Mike, I want to ask about the experiments that y'all have been working on up there on the ISS.
Well, the experiments are very, very diverse. We do everything from fluid physics to combustion science to basic biology. And a lot of my favorite ones are the human medical experiments, because we become such interesting creatures up here. But I'll highlight one that I'm part of, which is the Cypher experiment, which every system in the body changes as it adapts up here, which is pretty neat. But all of those adaptations are interdependent on one another. It's a global change, a holistic change. And Cypher is a package of multidisciplinary medical studies that tries to correlate all the changes from one system to another. So what happens in the cardiovascular system might relate to changes that we see in the neurovestibular system or the immune system. So I am one of the subjects of this from my background standpoint and my familiarity and friendship with that community. I think that's probably one of the more special things that I get to do, and I'll be doing some of that right after this. We'll be looking at my retina, and we have a technique up here we call optical coherence tomography, which takes really detailed looks at the back of your eye, all the layers in there, and the powerful tools like that up here enables us to really push the boundaries of physiology, especially in this novel environment.
Wow, that is fascinating. Now, this next question is for you, Tracy. As a vet on your third space flight, what, if anything, has been different or surprising this time around?
Well, there's, I think, two things that stand out to me. One is during my previous missions, we were assembling the space station, and using the space station as a laboratory was just in the infancy of our program. And so coming back now, and the assembly is complete, and we are full throttle on utilization and science and technology and demonstrations. It's really been a joy having a science research background to come here and do science, and as well as take care of the space station. So that's one of the big differences. And I think one of the other pleasantly surprising differences, although I don't know how many of my crewmates would agree, is that the place is a lot more organized than the last time I was here. And now it's, because we were constantly building the space station, and it was changing, and we hadn't quite really, after 10 years even, figured out what we needed to make this a well-oiled machine, and we were still learning. And enough of us have lived up here for 6 months or more, and we've come back and fed our ideas back, as well as all of those that work on the ground to design and operate and help control this space station. So we've pulled into our creative minds and have really developed a more efficient machine up here, from everything from cargo operations to stowage to how to operate the systems on board the space station, and makes a lot more room for the science to happen.
I could see Mike's face. It certainly looked like he agrees with you, Tracy. Now, we know NASA is working to get astronauts back on the moon with the Artemis mission. So if successful, Tracy, how do you think that'll shape the national conversation about the merits of space exploration?
Well, nationally speaking, I think we're standing on the shoulder of those that made the Apollo program happen, and so there's that level of confidence that we know how to get to the moon. And but this time we're going not just to see if we can get there, but to see what we can do once we're there, and to sustain our missions at the moon. But I think as what makes it a conversation in our own nation is the international, the global, the fact that we're going as planet Earth. We're going in a partnership fashion back to the moon, and with I guess social media being what it is, and information spreading like wildfire, not just throughout our nation but our whole globe. I think everyone's going to be talking about it because everybody's going to be involved, and I think everyone can see themselves in some form or fashion being a part of it.
Yeah, Tracy, I think you're right. Now, Mike, we know this is your third trip to the ISS after previously going into orbit in 2009 and 2011. How has each trip differed for you? Has it gotten better each time?
Well, each one has its own character. Again, I kind of look through a medical physiological lens. When you take your first flight and the engine's cut off after ascent, space starts talking to you real quick, and it reminds you you're in a novel place, and you feel that in ways like your sense of balance goes off, so you may get some space motion sickness. Your body fluids redistribute, so you may get some head fullness. You have to learn to navigate in 3 dimensions, and believe me, people on their first flight tend to bump into things quite a bit. That's just scratching the surface of it. But your second and third time, space talks to you, but your body starts to talk back. And it says, I've been here before. I remember this. I'm familiar with these conditions, and you adapt quicker. And I certainly did that on this third flight, even though it had been a 12-year gap. So I found that fascinating in and of itself, whether there's something innate that just remembers the zero gravity, or whether it's just thought through cognitive strategies, but there is something about repeated flights that that make it much easier to pass through those inevitable wickets of adaptation up here. To me, that's actually one of the most interesting aspects of spaceflight. I love being up here. I love floating in zero gravity, and there's a lot more wonderful things that go with it. But it's a pretty magical place, and it was great to get back.
It certainly sounds like it. It definitely looks like it. Finally, I'll ask you, what is it that makes you want to continue going up into space and learning more?
Well, you know, we've been going into space now for several decades, and I can honestly say we've still only scratched the surface of what there is to know about systems and how they work in space and how the human adapts to space. And I can say that with confidence because we keep finding new things, big things, physiologic effects that were right in front of our faces for years, and we just didn't see them. And when you have a laboratory that's well staffed and well equipped, you're able to find things like that. And, you know, we will continue to discover and explore things like crazy if we only stay in low Earth orbit. And some of those are helpful to us on the ground and our understanding of basic science. But a lot of them are important in the next steps that we want to take. And to me, that's probably of the greatest interest. You know, when I talk to kids a lot, and often they will say, well, when we go to Mars, we will do this. Or when we go to another star, what will it look like? It's almost an absolute inevitability to them, whether it's the sci-fi culture or the vigorous activity of spaceflight right now on so many different fronts. It's just assumed that we're heading that direction, and that's this generation that's coming. And I think building those stepping stones to get our civilization out a little bit further and really learn about our spaceflight environment, to me, that's the biggest magnet.
Hands down, I think I can say this is the neatest conversation I will have all day. Mike Tracy, thank you so much for joining us and for your really interesting insight.
It's our pleasure. Thanks so much for your interest and your questions.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communication.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We're ready for the event.
ISS RDC, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
All right, Station Boston, do you read us?
The great city of Boston. This is the International Space Station Expedition 71. We hear you loud and clear. We're ready for your questions and for your comments.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, hopefully you can hear some of that applause. So yes, I am speaking to you today from the ISS Research and Development Conference with a hotel ballroom full of people whose research that you're involved with every day, as well as people who are aspiring to send their science to space in the future. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. And to kick things off, of course, we're all interested in ISS R&D. Plus, you have a resupply mission coming up soon, which will, I'm sure, keep you real busy. So in that vein, I would love to hear from y'all about some of the science you've been supporting in your mission so far and things you enjoy on board.
Of course, all kinds of cool science and not enough time to talk about it up here. Two quick things that have been fascinating to me is working with a 3D printer that prints cardiac tissue to try and create artificial hearts. Pretty impressive to be able to do that and hear the excitement in the researcher's voice when you report back the results or show them a picture or show them a video of what their device has been working on, and they just get so excited, and I just love being a part of that. Of course, I'm just the technician moving things around, but it's always exciting to see that happen. And then the bigger part of the research also, as well, as we are the experiment. So I'm a part of a study where, we know that a treadmill takes a mass and space, and that might be hard as we go to the moon and we go to Mars. So I'm part of an experiment where I don't ride on the treadmill. We want to see if you can go in space and what happens to your body if you never use a treadmill. So I haven't ambulated or walked since March.
One comment I'll make is we kind of live between these cargo vehicles. Each one of those represents a science surge, if you will. It brings new experiments, and some of those are pretty hot off the press, meaning we have to work with short-lived components and really get on the stick and do a pretty wide variety of science associated with each vehicle. So we haven't had a new vehicle for a while. We're really looking forward to this and rolling up the sleeves and just doing a lot more diverse science when this comes.
I think you have a lot of folks who are very excited to get that cargo on board as well to have you help with that research. So kind of continuing on, I know Matt and Jeanette, I would love to get your perspective for your first flights. What's something that you did not expect, science or otherwise, about life on station?
Well, one thing that surprised me, having done so much research in the past, is how difficult research can be on orbit and the things that you have to think about before you assemble an entire project to do the research. The genetics in space and the really small quantities that we have to work with there, and the way that water operates in space is very different. So the thought that has to go into an experiment before we can conduct it up here is probably double the time that I would spend on the ground putting together one experiment. So that surprised me, but it's reasonable, especially when you consider that things just float away. And you got to make sure that your sample is secured to the table before you walk away from it. So there's many things that you have to consider when you're conducting research here in space. So kudos to the researchers who get it right, and they get great results because, they put Velcro on everything and make sure we do it properly. And, those are just some of the funny things, but conducting research here is different than on the Earth. And that is something that I've learned, and it's been a great lesson. And in the future, say, someone else is coming up here, they want to conduct their own research, they have to really consider a lot of things before they do that.
Awesome. And on the other side, for Mike and Tracy, and having a couple more missions there to ISS, how has the ISS changed since your first mission, especially how has the science changed since you first flew?
Well, I could say that during my first two missions, I was involved in the assembly of the space station, and utilization or science was just something we were, for lack of a better word, dabbling in. And the change for me has been now that we are assembly complete and we are full throttle on utilization, using this space station as the world-class laboratory that it was designed to be. It has been a joy to see not just the kind of science that's being done, but like Jeanette and Matt had alluded to, the scientists, the researchers, the investigators, the people who have invested so much